Well, I'm glad to be here with my good friend Mike Lashmett and, of course, Mr. McGee. And it's really a pleasure for me because lately I've begun working very closely with Mike. I've known him for a number of years, and I've watched Vintage Indy grow. And if I'm right, you're maybe in your seventh year of Vintage Indy, and it went from a very tiny little organization to a very big and important organization. This next race coming up in Long Beach, I know that they're going to be having close to 20 impeccably restored IndyCars out at Long Beach, and some very, very big name guys driving those cars. And it's incredible what Mike has put together. The facility that he has in Brownsburg is beautiful. I'm honored to be representing his company and developing additional corporate sponsorship and hopefully a new title sponsor very soon for Vintage Indy. And the guys that are involved in this sport with him are the big names, the who's who. You know, Zach Brown, who's the CEO of McLaren, he's out there driving one of the cars. A number of other people, Scott Borchetta, Jeff Irwin, Chris McAllister, Phil Gumpert, all these guys, these are heavy hitters, and he treats them all beautifully. They have a great amount of respect for Mike, and it's just a real pleasure to be a part of such a, high quality organization.
So thank you, Ralph, for those kind words, and it's been a lot of fun, getting to this point. Over 7 years, we started out, like as Ralph mentioned, we were a small organization, we weren't doing on-track events. I came up with the idea to do the Vintage Indy Registry just as a repository of information on these restored cars. Who owned them now, who had owned them over the years, who restored them, and the history on the cars from back in the day when they raced. So we've gone from those kind of simple beginnings to 6 events this year, 4 with IndyCar, kicking off at Long Beach at the Grand Prix out there next month, and then Road America, St. Louis for the 7th year, and then we're going to be going to Nashville to the Oval. I can announce that, I guess, today, with the Music City Grand Prix moving from downtown because of the ongoing construction of the stadium. They've moved that out to Nashville Superspeedway. So Scott Borchetta of Big Machine Records reached out and asked us if we would come to the Oval, and we absolutely want to go there. So we've added that to our schedule for this year. So, and on top of that, we're going back to the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix in Shenley Park, which is just a fabulous event for vintage race cars of all types. We were there 3 years ago, and then we're going back for the 3rd year up to the beautiful M1 Concourse facility in Pontiac, Michigan, for the American Speed Festival with the CEO up there, Tim McGee.
Did I hear correctly that in Long Beach there's going to be more than one former Newman Haas cars?
You're absolutely correct. You're spot on, as they say. We have 3 Long Beach Grand Prix winning cars entered out there, and they all 3 happen to be Newman Haas cars. 2 of them are Mario Andretti cars. One of them entered by Zach Brown, the Hannah Car Wash car. Scott Borchetta entered the Beatrice Foods car, and this fellow who I've yet to meet, a new member from, I think he's from up in Canada, and Don Hovel restored the car. It's the Sebastian Bourdais KV Racing car. Awesome. From Newman Haas that he won out there.
McDonald's car.
A McDonald's car. I said KV, pardon me. Thanks for correcting me. Which
he
won
win
with
4 championships, Champ Car championships.
Right.
In the Hill.
And Sebastian won with that car out there in 2005. And that'll be one of the newer cars that's with us. So.
It's a beautiful car.
Yeah. And we've got a Jim McGee car out there. We've got the Rick Mears PC6 Cam 2 car from Team Penske that Jim was chief mechanic on, and Rick put that on the front row at the Speedway that year.
Awesome.
Tell me the story about when the first time that you met Jim.
Well, I go back before I met Jim. So as a teenager, and I've told Jim this, my all-time favorite Indy car was the Dean Van Lines Hawk. The 65 car, which is over here just a few feet from us, and then later on the 67 car. But I was a big Mario Andretti fan as a child or teenager, and course, Jim McGee and Clint Bronner were part and parcel to that package because they were Dean Van Lines Racing. So I was a big fan, and I went to work for Vels Parnelli Jones in '71 on Al Unser Sr.'s car, the Johnny Lightning car. And the following year in '72, the Vels Parnelli Jones team became the super team. And it became the super team because we brought Mario Andretti on board as a driver, along with Joe Leonard and Al Sr. And Jim McGee came with Mario to Vels Parnelli Jones. So first time that I probably officially met Jim was at Vels Parnelli Jones in 1972.
First memory of a conversation with him.
Oh, probably out in the shop in Torrance when we were building the dihedral wing cars in the winter of '71, '72. I was on Al Sr.'s car. I was working underneath Bignotti and the late Jimmy Dillamarter. So I was on Al Sr.'s car. Mario, he had Jimmy and Gary Bonds and gosh, who else was
Jim
there?
Dillamarter, yeah.
Yeah, Dillamarter and Johnny Caples was the chief mechanic on Joe Leonard's Samsonite car at that time. So, would have been back in that era. So I remember when we did the press conference here in Indianapolis right before Christmas in 1971 for Brown and Williamson Tobacco Company out of Louisville. And they were the manufacturers of Viceroy cigarettes, and Viceroy came on as a primary sponsor for the team. And they had a big shindig at the Speedway Motel, and they flew people in from all over the country, the motorsports press and the drivers, chief mechanics. Vel and Parnelli were there that night. The president of Brown and Williamson Tobacco, Jim Cook, from Vels Parnelli Jones, he was our PR guy, and it was a dinner, and we revealed the car. We had Al Unser's car there that night, outside these sliding glass doors downstairs at the restaurant by the golf course, and the car was outside in the tent for people to see, and that was a really spectacular evening because Brown and Williamson Tobacco Company coming to IndyCar racing was a really big deal at the time.